So let's talk about why saying less often means more. Now, there's this concept that I was reading about in the Married Red Pill subreddit, and this guy had a post on what he called Occam's STFU. And we can't say the actual word because we're not at the 8-minute mark, right? But you know what STFU means, right? If you guys don't know what it means, can someone sound off in the chat with what STFU means? Because I can't say it. We still have 4 minutes. We're 4 minutes left until I can start speaking like an adult. But the idea here is that fewer words is more impact. And what he was basing his post on was the concept of Occam's razor, right? So Occam's STFU is based on Occam's razor. What's Occam's razor? I'm glad you asked. That's where there are competing theories or explanations for something. And so it's the belief that the simplest one is probably the best and probably the most accurate, right? So with Occam's STFU, the concept is the less you say, the better it will be, right? So the fewer words you use, the less room for the less room for misinterpretation. Think about that. Have you ever said a whole bunch of word salad and people on the other end, the receiving end, totally took it all wrong? They got the complete wrong concept, and then you're like, wait, no, that's not what I meant. And then you go and explain it with even more words, and then it just becomes even more confusing. Has that ever happened? I know guys at my day job that do that. Like they will really use a whole lot of word salad, a lot of images, a lot of pictures, and they're trying to explain something that's very simple, and they end up overcomplicating it. And you're like, I'm just confused. What are you even talking about right now? Because all like more words creates more confusion. So the less you say, it's actually better. If you can be more concise and direct, you'll actually be a better communicator. And then there's also this concept that confidence comes through brevity. If you'll find that people who know what they're talking about can explain it simply. They don't have to overcomplicate things. Think about that for a minute. I one time heard that people who are really smart, people that really understand a subject, they can explain it, especially if it's a really complicated subject, like let's say nuclear physics or nuclear fission or something, or quantum physics. Let's say that something that's complicated, they can explain it in simple, easy to use terms that like a 5-year-old can understand because they know it so well that they can adapt it to different people's understanding, their levels of understanding. And if you can't do that, then you probably actually don't know the subject well enough. If you have to use $30 words to explain something that could be explained even more simply with $5 words, you know what I mean? So anyways, powerful men, they don't need to ramble. They can get to the point with less words. And you got to think of something. Normal everyday conversations at work, in your relationships, out in the street, talking to the guy at the gas station. You're not in court. You're not in court. You're not trying to persuade a jury of your peers, right? So you don't have to you don't have to over explain. You don't have to over justify everything. In fact, man, I am really red. I've been out walking a lot lately, though. Anyway, in fact, if you think about it, for strangers on the street that you're arguing with, strangers on social media that you're arguing with, you don't have to say shit. We're past the 8-minute mark. I can say that. You don't have to say anything to these people. Why are you explaining to these people? Why are you trying to persuade strangers? Fuck them. Who cares what they think? You're not in court. You're not in court. You don't have to over justify everything. Not everyone has to agree with you. It's wonderful. It's wonderful. Let's talk about how men and women talk differently, right? Men and women absolutely communicate differently. This is why communication is not the key to a healthy relationship. Men and women speak in different languages. And half the time, the average person that's not trained on proper effective speech in communication or effective communication in relationships, if you're not trained on any of that stuff, everything that you think is communication is bullshit. It's just hurting you more than it's helping you, right? Even some of the communication books out there for relationships are garbage. In fact, I just reviewed one this morning on social media. So I'm in a community called Pubby where I get access to a lot of books, a lot of new books, so that I can review them, right? And then I share my books, and people can review my books and stuff too. It's just a way for authors to sort of, get more exposure. And I just read Communication Skills That Work for Couples by Jamie Hart, and I just did a review on it, and it was painful, painful to go through that book. In fact, I posted this on Facebook this morning. You'll see it later on Instagram and Twitter. I had scheduled it out at a different time, but I took a picture of the book cover and I circled the guy in it. The guy is sitting like a woman. He's got his legs crossed. He's got two hands around his cup of coffee, like it's all warm and cozy. And he's just having a girly talk with his girlfriend. And that's the message that blue-pilled communication books tell you to be. Be more like a woman, right? Communicate more like a woman, not like the masculine leader of the relationship, right? That's why relationships are broken. That's why the divorce rate is high, right? They've been telling us that for 60 years. Communicate more like this. Be more vulnerable. Be more emotionally available, right? Be more safe and secure. Watch your tone, all this kind of shit, right? And you'll notice that the divorce rate's only gone up. It's only gone up. If this shit worked, we wouldn't have the divorce crisis that we have now. Shit don't work. So here's the thing. The blue-pilled methodology when it comes to communication, it's all about how women operate in communication, right? It's men operate more functionally, women operate more emotionally. Okay. So women talk to connect, men talk to solve problems. Like we're there to, okay, what's the problem? All right, here's the solution, right? Women talk just to emote and how do those feelings make her feel and how do the words coming out of her mouth make her feel. And it's all about emotions and in processing those emotions, right? One of the guys in Beer Club just shared something fascinating. It was a video on Brother John from Beer Club. One of the brothers named John from Beer Club. They shared this video from Instagram where the guy was talking about two different schools of psychology. We have Sigmund Freud's school of psychology, and then we had this other guy's name. I can't even think of the guy's name. If John, if you're watching right now, sound off in the chat. I can't remember what the guy's name is. Anyway, the two schools of thought, one was Sigmund Freud's, and basically our whole culture and our whole therapy system is based off of the school of Freud, which talks about talking about your feelings and your childhood traumas and processing your childhood traumas. And the thing about that model is that it's better for business, but it's not actually good for solving people's problems, right? And so what happens with that method is that you just keep revisiting shit in your past. You never quite resolve it. You got to always keep digging back. So basically you're stuck in a cycle of going through therapy, talking about your feelings instead of actually doing something about it. You're never actually taking any action. And so you're just stuck in this therapy process that never gets resolved. And they just keep you coming back for more, buying more sessions. Whereas this other guy's school of thought was like, yeah, the past is a good learning opportunity, but let's focus on the present and how we can move forward, which is a lot of like what I espouse, what I teach, and it basically is what they found is that Freud has you communicating like a woman never actually solving the problem, but you feel better about it, right? This other guy's like, fix the fucking problem, and then you don't have to come back to therapy anymore. That's the difference between how men and women communicate. Yes?
New episodes every Monday, Wednesday, and Friday. Subscribe now.